Hi, welcome to this week's edition of More Insights and Strategy Game Time Tech Pod. I'm Melody Brew and I have Robert Kramer with me. How you doing, Robert?
I'm good. It's been an amazing week. We've been all over the place, and I'm excited to talk about it today. How are you doing?
Same. I think we've both hit like 6 or 7 cities, including layovers in the last week or so, 3 events total each. Um, But yeah, we got a lot to talk about. The big news is the AWS NFL game in Berlin. But before we get started, this show is for information and entertainment purposes only. While we will discuss publicly traded companies, its content should not be taken as investment advice. So I think we're both still like riding high, but also kind of, burning out. Thank God it's Friday and we get some rest over the weekend before we both hit the road again for Microsoft Ignite next week. But so last week, was it last week? It was last Sunday, almost a week ago. The Colts Falcon game in Berlin was really incredible. We were both there in person. And I think that there's something just so incredible about being there in the stands at Olympic Stadium
Mhm.
for the first ever regular season NFL game in Berlin. It really changes your perspective on what the NFL is trying to build globally. Do you think?
It was amazing, 1,000%. And I think you can see the global interest from being there in person, like you just mentioned. And I couldn't help but see Jonathan Taylor just obliterated the defense with 244 yards and 3 touchdowns, including an 83 yard. Uh,
83 yard.
I'm tongue tied because I'm so tired. We work all these different time zones, and as he's running, I'm like looking at my stats on fantasy football, like, oh my god, I'm playing against the guy that has this person, and I'm getting absolutely demolished, and he's going to win the game for the Colts. But anyways, it was so fantastic being there. AWS has totally transformed how this event actually works behind the scenes. So the visibility, the data flowing through the operations, it's not just about the game anymore.
Yeah, completely. I think what was interesting and maybe even like a little bit like at first, I don't want to say confusing, but a little bit like I was like, wait, what? The Seahawks aren't playing. But the Seahawks had this whole experience in Berlin and we got to experience the Seahawks Haus on both days that we're there. And really that's where I think you really kind of got the big bite of how AWS isn't just powering analytics for the Seahawks organization, but they're reshaping the entire fan experience at a fundamental level. So the Seahawks Haus in Berlin was this 2-day activation that had just a ton of energy to it. There were fans from Germany, from all over Europe, and all of them there to connect with the NFL and with their team in a way that's really
Mhm.
difficult to do from that far away.
And that's really the genius of what AWS is doing. It's not just about them setting up a booth with some merchandise. They're creating an immersive experience, right? And that's
Yeah.
enabling by the cloud infrastructure that they have, which is, I think, a lot more extensive than what we all think. So if you think about it, they have real-time data, they have personalized content recommendations, they have fan engagement tools that literally couldn't exist without cloud computing at scale.
Yeah, when you are creating that kind of activation, we're both tongue-tied today. We're just too tired. We're gonna take a nap now. That kind of activation across time zones with fans, they still expect that instant engagement and they want the real-time updates on the game, access to player stats, highlight reels. That's all happening on AWS infrastructure in the background. So even though the fans don't necessarily see it, they feel it. So the
Mhm.
experience feels seamless. It feels native to how they consume content everywhere else. And I think that really came across in the panels that we were a part of with AWS and NFL and other partners, just talking about what it takes to do this.
Yeah, this connects directly to what we've been talking about really in this sports tech space. So recently, if you remember, we published that research brief on cloud-based TV sports production and distribution.
Yeah.
And the takeaway was clear. and me and you spent a lot of time on this. The old way of doing things, fixed infrastructure, on premises equipment, rigid workflows, that's really dead. It's not happening anymore. There's a new way of doing it. Cloud gives you the flexibility, the scalability, and it actually reduces your carbon footprint. So it's not just about production anymore. It's about the entire ecosystem around the game. And that's what we saw firsthand, how that was moved from the United States to this global atmosphere, and how it was taken in by the fans and how we got to see it behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway is, we got to be there with 72,000 of our close friends in Olympic Stadium, and that's
Drinking a lot of beer.
a lot of people
They
drinking,
were, not us.
not us. Took a while to even get a beer. A lot of people, yeah, I'll leave the
The
cigarettes
story.
to it alone. But when you look at kind of the history, the gravity of that venue mixed with seeing how technology is enabling a global reach for an American sports league, that's really profound. So I think that AWS and the NFL are together proving that you can take a very quintessential American sport and make it globally accessible and locally relevant at the same time. So that was my big takeaway. What was your favorite part of the whole
Mm.
experience and the trip?
Well, that was a really great point that you made. But I thought it was really neat to see how lively the fans were. I felt like I was at a European soccer game. They were just cheering. It
Yeah,
was so exciting the way that they were into the sport, and they just did not stop. It was just constant chanting, and the game went into overtime, if everybody can believe that. So it was not it wouldn't end. So it was just really an intense game and really fun. And I also liked how they had the flags on the seats when we walked in, and then you kind of look back as we did, after you're on TV to see what it looked like, and it was really well thought out. The
yeah,
I think the person who was the oriented with doing all the microphone and all the leading the charge with the fans, I thought was fantastic. But
yeah. That part was actually really cool just to see how very into it the people were, and also how many people who traveled from the US to the game. I mean, there were
true.
tons of fans on my flight home, and everybody seemed to just really enjoy it. And I think there's so much more to that partnership that, we would need a whole nother podcast just to talk about this, but I love what they're doing in player safety. We talked about
Mhm.
sustainability, we talked about fan engagement, but also how they're using this data to identify what are some areas of the world that are the fan base is growing, and what are some ways that they can continue to grow that fan base for the NFL. And we saw actually one of the big sponsors at the arena was Adobe. And we've talked a lot about Adobe and the partnership with the NFL and being able to really create content that speaks to that fan. So across the board, I think the NFL is doing such interesting things to engage a new fan base, whether it's with content creation, the data through AWS, of course, the player safety, and all of that is trickling down even into like flag football and into youth sports. So really cool stuff there. So
I think we're going to see, even over time, an opportunity for teams to be in Europe to really spread this to be more of a global league. But what we talked about today could be the start of that initiative moving forward. But time will tell. And I think we can shift gears to, you were also in Seattle last week and got
yes.
a chance to see the Seattle Kraken. It's an NHL team, and you were at the Climate Pledge Arena. And I know there's a lot to say about the stadium there, the arena, not the stadium, and the partnership of Smartsheet. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yes. So I was in Seattle before Berlin for the Smartsheet analyst event. And so we did go to the Kraken game. First of all, I haven't seen a hockey game in person probably since I was a kid. So just the action alone was really like kind of crazy and so fun to watch. But being there at the Climate Pledge Arena, that actually completely blew my mind. This is not just a sustainable building. It is a really great case study in how enterprise software enables operational excellence at scale. So I went with Smartsheet. Smartsheet has a partnership with them. But in walking through that arena, you just can like immediately see and feel the sustainability commitments, like from just walking in.
So when you talk about that, I mean, sustainability can mean a number of different things, and I'm somewhat intrigued when you say that. So when you speak to that, like what specifically are you talking about, and how does this really help with the overall effort to the system that they're trying to get to?
Yes. So the Climate Pledge Arena is the first arena in the world to achieve the International Living Future Institute Zero Carbon certification.
Mm,
So that's not just a lead certification, it's different. They've actually offset their entire operational and embodied carbon footprint. So they have like 1,300 solar panels. They're 100% powered by renewable energy. Even
wow.
their Zambonis, the things that clean the ice, and then they actually have
Yep.
people skating out and scooping up the ice. Their cooking equipment is electric. Everything is electric. So they're just 100%. The tour was actually mind blowing. Every little thing that I saw throughout the arena was not just sustainable, but actually like really cool too.
That's pretty wild because, when you build an arena like that and you can put it in from the ground up, the sustainability is just, I guess, more genuinely architected into the operation and the decisions that they made to make it that way. So that's
Yes.
pretty significant.
Yeah, they talked about how they took it down and like the way that it was built, and they maintained the roof. It was originally built for I think it was the World Fair. I don't know what year that was. I'd have to look that up. But what you talked about, that it's really like architected into every operational decision, and that's where Smartsheet comes in. So we weren't just there as like a boondoggle. There was actually a reason for us to be there. So Climate Pledge Arena hosts 100 to 120 events a year. So that's a lot.
That
Um,
is a lot.
and managing that scale of operations, and actually they said it's growing because they find that artists, when they come there, they find it so easy, the way that they've built everything so that there are fewer trucks, that they're like, it's easy to load in and load out. So it just makes everything more efficient. So managing that scale of operations with creative logistics, with event planning, marketing campaigns, waste management, I mean, vendor coordination, all of this is where Smartsheet comes in. So they're providing the operational backbone to that. So Smartsheet is an official presenting partner of both Climate Pledge Arena and the Seattle Kraken, and I think it's a 5-year deal.
That's fantastic. So when you talk about impact, so this partnership is doing something that's super impactful. There's something down the line that it's delivering. What is that exactly?
So from an operational standpoint, with what they're doing with Smartsheet, and as you know, we're Smartsheet customers, so we see, how having everything in one document instead of like scattered across different spreadsheets and different platforms, that adds up to a lot of efficiency. So
Mhm.
in that partnership, they're saving 1 to 1.5 hours per event just by having that documentation, and up to 200 hours per year. It's basically essentially a full-time employee worth of efficiency. So it's more than just time savings, though. I think that we have to look at how we quantify the ROI, especially on AI, and if it's just about productivity, does that really like mean anything to you? But if you look at that, they're able to ensure that all of those events that they do in a year maintain the same standard of sustainability, compliance, waste diversion goals, the zero waste certification they achieved. They got true platinum certification for diverting over 90% of waste from landfills. So that's more than just productivity, right? They're really keeping to their pledge, for lack of a better word.
And that's really the insight that I think gets lost in a lot of these enterprise software conversations. So most likely nobody's really buying Smartsheet because they want to collaborate on spreadsheets, right? And it's more than a spreadsheet, but it can be seen as that. So they're
Right.
buying it because they're trying to achieve a business outcome. And in that case, operational consistency across massive scale while maintaining these sustainability standards that really matter.
Absolutely. And the arena itself is fascinating from an industry trends perspective as well, with being able to kind of track and control all of these things. They've removed all single-use plastics. They're using only recyclable materials and concessions. They've got, I mean, just like literally everywhere that you look, even up to the public transportation to the games, it's really they're building a different model for what a sports facility can be, and they're really doing a great job with that.
And I'm sure they're improving it every year because they're learning and they're,
Mhm.
fixing and, their experience is changing. So from the fans' perspective, how does it change their view of their experience that they're having at these hockey games? Does it do anything, or do they feel like it's a unique experience?
I mean, so there's a lot of things happening really within the arena, that like with the fan engagement and everything, the way that you see the game, in multiple places. So there's no bad seat. Obviously, being a little closer up, you can see a little bit more, but they've really, throughout the arena, they've made really put in all these really great kind of infrastructure decisions that make being at a game, sometimes people say like, well, being at the game, it's not really that much different. Like maybe I'll just watch it on TV. But the experience there actually is really great. And there's so much that goes on that makes it like, and I'm sure there are multiple other vendors involved in making that fan experience really memorable. T-Mobile had a presence there, Verizon had a presence there, which was kind of interesting. You see T-Mobile and Verizon kind of battling it out for some some signage attention. But really, I think a lot of what they're able to do from the Smartsheet perspective and the partnership is that they're really able to kind of, it's like you said, it's not just software sitting in the background. It's really enabling the venue and Kraken to execute on their core mission at scale. So every event, every campaign,
Mhm.
every initiative is coordinated through that platform. And so it's really kind of boils down to its infrastructure for their values.
Well, and I think they get it as an organization. They're a young franchise, so they're not weighed down by this legacy infrastructure decisions.
Mhm.
So it's a newer facility. They built it from the ground up with sustainability in mind as a core operational principle, and it's not a marketing initiative. And going back to what you said about the game, when you're at the game, I think you can kind of see it a little different. You can see the physical component of it, the how tech is involved at the same time, and kind of how physical meets digital,
Mhm.
and what the fans are getting out of it. I think that's a really important part of what sports is, how it's being transformed.
So I know you're a big hockey fan. Interesting question for you, because this came up when I was there, and then it came up again in Berlin about what kind of technology decisions are made that really enhance the game, and then are there technology decisions that and people end up not liking, or the league may walk back. And I didn't know this, but I find this really fascinating that for a period of time they had that little halo over the puck when during broadcasts, because people couldn't keep track of where the puck was. Apparently, fans did not like that, and they did away with it.
Yep.
So similar to, we've talked about the chain gang, and that's being replaced with AI. Do you think there's any chance that it will get the same type of backlash? And I know you actually asked one of the CIO of the NFL about that in Berlin. What are your thoughts on that? Because I could see that the puck being very distracting. I think the chain gang, it's more precise. It makes sense. But I think you're right. You kind of miss that like excitement, that moment of running out there, and there's a, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think there has to be the nostalgia. There has to be, like you always say, you don't want the players to lose on a bad call, but it's still part of the game. The halo was a so counterproductive on the sport. I don't think it added any value. I think the NHL is looking for ways to make the game more efficient with technology. The way the players are are the rules of the game, the way that the two-line pass, or the way that the fans get the data, the way the coaches get the data. I think it's meant to make the game more efficient and better, but not take away from the nostalgia or how it's played. I think the Major League Baseball, there's a lot of comments I have about that. I think they're doing it almost a little bit more aggressive than the other sports. I think the NFL is doing it right by doing the right ones, specifically focusing on player health. The chain gang, I there's been some bad calls. That's why it's one of those things that it has been in effect. But we did like it when you stop the play, the guys run out there, and then they take the yard, and then the guys like, we got this much, and I think it's really part of the sport. And
It is.
you got to stop at some point where you can't go the whole way. There has to be the components where the sport has to still live the way that it's natural. And I think you're going to get to a point where we're going to see some problems with that. I had some conversations with some people at Salesforce, because they're involved in sports a lot, and they think that you have to stop at some point, because we're not going to have the true sports that we've always looked at, where you go back with your grandfather sitting in the stands at a baseball game keeping score. That's not even close to reality anymore.
Right.
What's your
So,
thought?
hockey tracker or no? Yes or no?
No. Sorry,
No.
that was my long-winded answer. Absolutely not.
I think almost everybody I spoke to, they would agree with you that they didn't like the puck tracker. So, kind of makes you wonder, like, where did that idea come from? Was there some data that showed that people aren't able to track the puck and it's confusing for them? But, either way, it's great that these leagues are looking at what fans want and making adjustments. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. And, in this case, they walked it back. So, or they skated
As
it
long
back.
as it doesn't hurt as long as it doesn't hurt the game that you're trying to play. But
Yeah.
so you've been to Berlin, you went some places, uh, Seattle, other places on top of that. Those are in your back pocket. Now you're heading to meet me in San Francisco for Microsoft. But then after that, you're going to go to Vegas for um, we have a Formula One, right? So tell us a little about that's a totally different energy. Talk us through what T-Mobile's doing there, and where 5G plays an effect to this.
So you're right, such a different energy. It went going from hockey to American football to now Formula One. They're all fast though, and cold actually. Um, but yeah, so I'm super excited about this. So November 23rd in Las Vegas. This is the third year that T-Mobile is partnering with the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And the innovations this year are really taking everything that they've done in the past kind of next level. So 5G connected cameras, delivering broadcast views that we've never seen before, and then some really cool things for actual T-Mobile customers in their Magenta lounges and stuff. So I'm excited.
That's fantastic. So when you talk about a little bit about the Grand Prix, and you talk a little bit about the 5G cameras, is that a buzzword or is that an actual innovation?
It is actually. It's a very they've been doing it. I mean, they did it. I think we talked a while back about the PGA Championship, and I was there and saw how they deployed the cameras
Mhm.
there. But this is actually the first time at the Las Vegas Grand Prix that they're deploying a 360-degree camera powered by 5G. So they're doing this at turn 9. So that means real-time, low latency, broadcast grade quality, getting immersive 360-degree views of the track as the cars race past. So if you think about, Vegas, you're going in through buildings, and I don't know if you've seen the track there, but there's a lot of almost like a golf course, really. There's like a lot of ground to cover, and you can't necessarily see all of it from one place. So they also have drone footage with live aerial views of the whole circuit and the Las Vegas Strip. And so these will be live feeds happening through 5G network slicing that T-Mobile's deploying just for this event.
What a cool city to show this Grand Prix, and
Yeah.
all the visuals of this network slicing and how it's being done. And so this is where it gets interesting from an infrastructure perspective. That's enterprise grade connectivity, but at a consumer experience point. So
Yes.
what else are they going to be doing?
Everything. You think of it, you name it. You name it, they're doing it, I think. I mean, that'll be seen, but I get there Wednesday night. There's a couple of different events, to actually showcase the technology, and then the
I'm
actual
jealous.
I know, it's so
Right.
it'll be fun, but some really interesting, conversations around really the technology and how it affects. So, right, what they're doing at the Las Vegas Grand Prix is point of sale transactions. They're doing ticketing, first responder communications through their T priority, and they're like we talked about, but network slicing. So basically, that's allocating dedicated, guaranteed network resources for specific operations, so that when you've got 200,000 people trying to get into an event, your payment system doesn't die, right? Your first
Mhm.
responders can communicate without latency. Photographers can upload content in real time. So I think the first responder thing, that's always something, maybe because my brother's a police officer, that's always something that like just has like it really like hits me like emotionally. I'm like, that's so important. It is
So
like for safety and everything.
that's super critical. So in the broadcast world, we used to have hardwired connections for content delivery for all these major events. I mean, you'd see wires running everywhere. So now you had those fiber runs. So now you have T-Mobile saying we can do that wireless through the cloud in real time. That changes the economics, that changes the production, that changes the sport
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah, so they've designed this solution specifically for outdoor high traffic environment of like a street circuit. So their event staff is using its Super Mobile, which is a business phone solution that combines both the network slicing and satellite to mobile coverage, so that even the hard to reach areas like around the paddock, people can stay connected. So that's really addressing a real operational problem that venues have been struggling with for years. I mean, you see in sports how like they have to actually pick up a landline to call because it's not always reliable. So with Supermobile and network slicing, they're able to have that really reliable connection.
And some of these things connect. So as we talk about AWS and Berlin, so how does this connect to the cloud-based production model we were just talking about with the Berlin game in AWS?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. AWS is handling a lot of the centralized cloud infrastructure and for content production and distribution. T-Mobile provides the connectivity layer that makes it possible to send content from those 5G cameras in Vegas or wherever, whether it's a golf course or Vegas, directly to the cloud without that bottleneck of physical infrastructure. So they're kind of two pieces of the same puzzle. So it's connectivity and compute working together.
And when you think about it from the fan perspective, golf and Formula One, it's one of those sports that you can't see the whole stadium or what's being played in one view. So this is super important. So what does this actually mean for someone attending the game and maybe even someone watching it on TV?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to some of the big events that we've been at over the last couple of years, including Wimbledon and US Open, where there's so many things happening in different spots. And actually, like one of my favorite memories of when we were at the US Open last year was when we heard all of the cheering and screaming from a court that was like super far away from us. And we were able to check the app to see like what's happening where there, and it was like, just a crazy, crazy doubles match that we walked over to see. So
Yep.
similar. So fans can experience the F1 Las Vegas app. So it has nearly 200,000 downloads, 360-degree interactive views of the circuit. So highlights will be replayed in real time. Replays, there are some replays that are exclusive to T-Mobile customers through their Magenta status, which the like hospitality that they set up for T-Mobile customers is actually really cool. Um, they also will have the T-Mobile Zone at the Sphere and with performances, and then the Club Magenta has a VIP lounge with views of the track and in uninterrupted 5G connectivity. So, and then T-Mobile customers do get some exclusive content and experiences.
Wonderful. So it's not just technology for technology's sake, it's a complete ecosystem where connectivity enables this entertainment, personalization, and really the community around the race experience.
Yeah, and I think that's really what's so fascinating is we always say, like, enterprises now want consumer grade experiences. And so that's the really interesting thing from my perspective is that this is B2B enterprise technology with the network slicing and cloud infrastructure being deployed to create a consumer experience at scale. So you can draw a direct line between the advances T-Mobile is making in their 5G standalone network to the ability to execute something like this in Vegas. So I think that's the future of sports venues, especially ones hosting major global events and ones with massive broadcast requirements.
So there's an industry trend here we should call out. Every major sporting event is becoming a connectivity test case. So like the Formula One, right? Las
Yeah.
Vegas Grand Prix is testing real-time broadcast infrastructure. The Berlin Game with AWS testing their cloud production workflows, and the Kraken and the Climate Pledge Arena is testing software at scale. So there aren't just sports events anymore, they're innovation laboratories.
You are 100% right. And the stakes just keep getting higher, right? Like if your infrastructure fails, you're not just disappointing fans, you're wasting broadcast partnerships, sponsor investments, the whole economic model. So the technology has to work perfectly. No pressure, right?
Well,
Yeah.
we've had a good show here, and what are we doing next week besides Microsoft? You're going to go to Las Vegas, and then we have something called Thanksgiving after that, and
I
we
was like,
have a
"Wait, what? What?"
we have I have Amazon, and we have a few other things. So there's a lot going on, a lot of sports. The one thing I like about sports technology is a great concept, or a way to show different concepts that could be used in different um, industries. Because sports is an industry, we shouldn't forget about how that is and how technology is a big part of sports now, and it's going to be a bigger part, and it's going to be used as great test cases for other industries, and it's exciting.
Yep, you are absolutely right in that. I think that these are powerful stories that vendors can tell when they have these sort of test environments that where they can really execute on these really complex situations at scale. And, we talked a little bit in Berlin with some of the AWS executives about are they able to use these and tell their customers a story? And we heard examples of even in manufacturing and how it clicks, the light goes on. And
Yep.
so yeah, it'll be interesting. We've got multiple more additional events throughout the rest of the year and going into next year. So we'll keep plugging at it, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot next week at Microsoft Ignite because they have a ton of sports partnerships as well. So
Absolutely. So Melanie Brew, Robert Kramer, like us on all the different platforms that we're on. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube and X. If there's anything you want us to talk about, feel free to reach out to us. Have a good rest of the evening and weekend. Happy holidays, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.
thanks.